This is Wednesday, day 25, week 13, IT Essentials. Key things here, chapter 11, the exam is on Windows. You can take it 3 times. The chapter 11 exam. Course materials, we talked a little bit about some of the items to finish the course. We actually talked about other iOS's or operating systems today, and they spent a lot of time on lab work. So let's move forward and take a look here. In general, we talked about, this is basically, we're talking about operating systems, and mostly here we're referring to Windows in our work. In fact, it's all Windows, and we're emphasizing Windows 10. Desktop, you should be able to manage around the desktop. You should be able to understand File Explorer and make use of all the tools. How do we look at storage? We talked a little bit about syncing. Students talked about syncing to the cloud, but your own company, who you work for, they could have their own large storage system to where you can take it and then take your laptop home, work on that, and then sync those files when you come back to work. Does that make sense? Okay, this cloud, could be Dropbox or Google or something, or if your organization doesn't want you using a public cloud, they might have similar things set up right here for data store. Not very many students, or they weren't bold enough to tell me, have ever used the control panel, which surprised me. Most people that work around Windows somewhere have to go in the control panel, either delete a file, delete a software, or do something. And then we're doing a lot of work on configuring it. Administering the system. How do you manage the computer? And there are all these labs that are helping us do that. Notice I have an asterisk here. Everybody needs to get good at the command line. Period. And if you don't like it, don't think it's important or whatever, you'll just have to put up with it until you graduate from that. Yes, it's one of those things you just have to believe us when we say you gotta be pretty good at the command line. And then this, we're doing, double work on this. We're working here in IT Essentials on some network stuff. And then those of you that are in the networking class, you're working with that also. So you're getting a little bit of double, and some of it's unique on each. So this really is a good overview of what we want to learn in the chapter, things we have to be able to do. Next page. A little more just about operating systems. Operating systems come from what I would call a little bit larger category called system software. You have the OS, and then we have a whole range of utilities that allow us to manage the system. Applications are designed for users to get done what they need to get done. Now I say solve a problem, but it's in order for them to, let's say, just function in a technological world, however that might be. So users want this very good, user interface, right, or user experience with the application, and typically they don't care about all this up here unless they have to use it sometime. Unless they have to use it. We are all experts at different levels, right? We're not all the same place, but this is what we're trying to understand. We're trying to understand this, and more specifically now, Windows and how Windows uses utilities in order to make a great experience for the users using the computer. We talked about A graphical user interface is basically executing commands. And we'll look at not everything, but a lot of the commands from a command line point of view. Last page. So, looking ahead, we want to look a little bit at the Mac OS next week. We talked about Linux. And we also talked about a little bit about how these will compare to Windows, mostly Windows 10. And really, what's real important here is to understand why we have so many people using this and this being used in a lot of areas that a lot of you aren't even familiar with, and why people pick Apple. And we'll talk about that. And also, we're going to talk about Android and iOS. So we had a good number of people that said they have an Android phone. We had a decent number of people iOS. We're going to be able to look at iOS on the iPads. We have plenty of iPads we can use in class for that. And we may even have some other options for Android to look at that operating system. Key things for these mobile devices is how do we connect them to a network? You know, your 3G, 4G, 5G, whatever, or you're connecting through Wi-Fi or some combination, right, of those. Since they're so easily lost, taken, stolen, how do we secure them? You know, what can we do to make sure if somebody else gets it, we can wipe the device? Or what do we do with all that data we have just on the device in terms of, do we encrypt that? Access to the device. How do we control access to the device? So that's coming up. And that would be Chapter 12. All right. One last comment, and let me add a page. Chapter 11. Buku amount of information. A lot of information. That's why it'd be crazy for me to think that you would be able to remember all that. So that's why we're allowing you to take the exam for this chapter 3 times. You need to have it done by this coming Monday evening. Alright. 3 times. Because we wouldn't expect you to remember that. Also, by Monday evening, we want those labs squared away. Now, we'll talk a little bit about Chapter 11 on Monday, but we'll also talk a lot about those things in Chapter 12, those Android, iOS, and do some work with that. One more key thing, we have a Chapter 1 through 9 final. So this will go into the group of your final tests, okay? So this one gives you an opportunity to see where you're at, and that will be taken Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That is it.